So welcome everyone to the BITS Data Analytics Accelerator info session. My name is Bhakti and I am one of the facilitators for this program. A little bit about me. I'm a junior studying BATE. I serve as the Vice President and Director of Tech for BITS. Currently, I'm a product manager intern at a blockchain startup. And as a PM, I perform research and analysis on different use cases of an autoregressive model that uses deep learning to determine how it could be applied to music technology. I also design UI wireframe mockups to strategize user flow through the product, estimate feature complexity for development, and establish product requirements and product roadmap. And this past fall, I completed data analytics and audit co-op at Merck, where I learned a ton about data scrubbing, building dashboards, pulling out insights, and sharing actionable takeaways from the data. And yeah, besides that, in my free time, I enjoy playing tennis, cooking, and playing Fall Guys. So does anyone here actually play Fall Guys? Let me know in the chat. I can't read the chat, but yeah, it's a super fun game, and I really like it for de-stressing from like school and work and everything. Okay, so now I'm going to explain what we have in store for this semester with our Data Analytics Accelerator. So this is part of our syllabus, and I'll just briefly go over like the objectives and goals for this program. So this course can be broken up into 3 parts. The first part is gathering data, cleaning data, and analyzing it. In the second part, you'll learn how to build dashboards and data visualizations with Tableau and Power BI. And for the third part, we have some special topics. So we'll introduce you to the fundamentals of machine learning and cloud computing. So yeah, diving into detail about what this all means, you'll learn the basic concepts of SQL in week 1 or workshop 2, how to query data and how to create and manipulate databases. And then we have to get an understanding of how we can deal with data using Python. So you'll learn how to collect data using web scraping, and then how to clean this data so you can start analyzing it faster in Python using packages like pandas and NumPy. And so the reason that this is sort of a useful skill to have because like in the real world, you know, data sets are very messy. They never come to you in perfect shape or clean form. And a lot of times if you go out and like collect data, you're gonna have a lot of missing values. And sort of like an example would be like where numbers are represented as strings. So you kind of just have to like learn how to deal with all of this to create a clean data set that is of use to you. And then we'll have a mid-semester project where you'll be able to apply everything you've learned up to the 5th workshop. And for this project, you can participate individually or work with a team of up to 3 people. And we will have signups for the project as it gets closer to the date. And yeah, the goal is to create something that's very useful to you and that you can analyze and communicate results with. Okay. So after we learn how to handle data, we're going to learn how to visualize it. So that's just communicating data. So like making plots that show trends in our data set. And then we'll talk about understanding machine learning and cloud computing as fundamental concepts. So we'll dive into like some popular machine learning models, which we can use to help us make predictions, like let's say help us classify an image as a rose or a cactus, or predict someone's income based on like where they went to college. And yeah, last but not least, we'll have a final project where you'll get to apply everything you've learned throughout the workshop series. And then we'll have a project demo day where you and your team get around 5 minutes to present your projects to a panel of judges. So a key goal of this program is that we want this to be like very practical for everyone participating in it. So the most important thing is getting like project experience, right? And the best way to kind of learn, in my opinion, is getting your hands dirty with data and just working on projects. So one of our other goals is to have fun exploring data sets that interest you and getting meaningful results from that. And also just like learning how to communicate your insights. So yeah, learning these different tools will be very useful if you want to start exploring your own projects or you want to actually consider this as a career afterwards. And there are no prereqs for this program, but I highly recommend you to get familiar with the basic syntax of Python to start. And you can refer to our YouTube channel for our basic Python workshops we hosted last semester. And you can also do the 7 days Kaggle course on Intro to Python, which Adrian will drop the links in the chat for. And then we also have some pretty cool incentives for the people who participate in these mid-sem and final projects. So some incentives would be you'll get priority when applying to eBoard apps for the upcoming recruitment cycle. We'll also feature winning projects on our website. And the best part is you can put these projects on your resume. So it's like super great experience to talk about during interviews. So I highly recommend you guys to participate in these projects, not just for the perks, but because you'll get to learn a lot and reinforce everything you learn. So now we'll introduce the amazing workshop instructors. So you can just unmute yourself and introduce yourself. And we can start with Adrian.
Hello everyone, I'm Adrian. I'm a freshman planning on majoring in BATE and computer science. Or wants to go next?
I'll go next. Hi everyone, my name's Amir. I'm a senior. I'm a double major in supply chain and BATE and a minor in econ. And that was pretty much it.
Is Thad here?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, yes we can.
Okay, awesome. So I just left my lecture. I'm in the middle of one right now. But hello everyone, my name is Thad. I am a double major in computer science and statistics mathematics, and currently working as a data analyst. So I'm really excited to be doing this with you guys.
Hey everyone, my name is Sean, and I am a double major in BATE and Finance with a concentration in global business.
What's up, guys? I'm Jay. I'm a junior, and I'm a BATE and Finance major.
Hey everyone, my name is Shrivan Sikkinam, currently a junior, double majoring in finance and BATE, along with a double minor in stats and health admin.
Awesome. So these are our amazing instructors we have for this sem, and everyone in the team will be facilitating different workshops. And yeah, we'll have some office hours so you guys can come and ask us questions. Okay, so before we jump into our Python workshop, I think we should take a group picture because few of you have class at 6:40 from the eBoard. So I'll just pause the recording really quick. I'm recording. Okay, so let's jump into our first workshop on Python. So Python is everyone's first favorite programming language, and Python is great because the syntax is easy and it's useful for all data-related things such as web scraping, cleaning, and visualization. I'll be using a Jupyter notebook to show you some examples during this workshop. Okay, so first off, data types. So the first data type we have is an integer or int. So integers are whole numbers. They're positive or negative, and they are -12, 3, 245. And there are a lot of integers, and I'm not going to say them all, but that's just one data type. Now we're going to talk about strings. So strings are technically a data structure rather than a data type because they're a little more complex, but we'll get into that. So for our purposes, let's just think of them as text values. So strings are denoted by single or double quotations. So you can see that BITS uses double quotes while data uses single quotes. And it doesn't really matter as long as you're consistent end to end. Python will know that it is a string. So, and next example, you might think of like 45 as a number, but if you put it in quotes, Python will think of it as a string or text value. And then next we have a float. So this is a floating point value. These represent real numbers, and here are some examples of floats. And our last data type is a Boolean. So Booleans are binary. They represent true or false values, and they're often the result of comparator functions. And finally, we have some data structures. So we're going to compare a NumPy array and a Python list. So Python doesn't have a built-in array type. So a big difference between like NumPy arrays and Python lists are actually runtime and memory efficiency. But for our purposes, we're just going to worry about their operational differences. So over here, we can see two NumPy arrays. And both of these m and n variables are being assigned in these statements to various NumPy arrays. So the first one holds 3, 4, and 5, and the second one 6, 7, and 8. So we can see a difference here between the NumPy array and the Python list. So the difference is basically we had to implement this and tell it to be a NumPy array by like importing the NumPy package. Whereas for the list, we just put the information inside like the brackets and it's a Python list, and it's just as easy as that. Now, another difference is if I want to use a plus operation, this is actually a concatenation of two lists. So you can just see like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for the output here. Whereas in the NumPy array, I'm summing each element in a pairwise fashion. So 3 plus 6, 4 plus 7, 5 plus 8, and this is your output. So yeah, that's another difference. And there are some operations that are a little bit easier on NumPy arrays than they are in lists. For example, in a NumPy array, you can do operations like raising each element to the power of 2 with this very simple line of code. Whereas in a list, this will give you a type error. And there are ways of getting around this, which we'll see in the demo. Okay, so some more fun stuff with arrays and lists. So for the NumPy array, we're going to start with the first statement here. I'm going to assign array 1 to be a NumPy array containing integers 4, 5, 6, and 7. And if I call it again, I'll find this array 4, 5, 6, and 7, just like I expected. And this is all happening in a Jupyter notebook, by the way. So you have to call stuff if you want to see it. And NumPy arrays have some built-in functions, including sum and mean. So let's say you wanted to break down mean and write it yourself. Well, it's super easy. You could just do array1 dot sum divided by len, which stands for length. So len of array 1, which would give you the number of elements in that array. And that's the same as mean. Now let's talk about mutation with a list. So mutation is the idea of changing the value of a variable. So this list, for example, is mutable. So we're going to start by assigning the list to be cherry, kiwi, and watermelon. So I'm going to take the second element here, which is that index 1, because everything in most programming languages starts at index 0, and I want to change it to mango. So basically, I assign this index 1 element to mango, and if I call this list again, it's going to output mango instead of kiwi here. And now I can do the same with cherry. So I can remove cherry from the list using list.remove, and we won't see the cherry here anymore. So does that make sense? All right, so conditional statements. So conditional statements, these control execution flow, super important. Now, if, elif, and else make up conditional statements, and if any, so see there's a conditional statement there. So if any of the conditional statements following the if or elif conditions are true, then the actions are evaluated. So for example, I can set location to be park with a single equal sign. And this is now a comparator. So this equals is comparing the value of the things on either side. So if my location is equal to park, then I'll print welcome to the park. Elif, my location is equal to the mall, then I'll print welcome to the mall. And if none of these statements are true, else will be evaluated and the program will print where are you? So since the location is park here, it'll say welcome to the park. And we'll see some more examples of this in the demo. All right, so next we have loops. So there are two kinds of loops. There are for loops and while loops. For loops we usually use to iterate through a list or array, and while loops repeat an action while a condition is true. And the thing we have to be careful for in terms of while loops is we can end up with an infinite loop if we're not careful. So here we have an example of a for loop. So for x in range 0 through 6, print what x is. That's basically what the statement is saying. So you can think of range as a list of numbers, and you give range a starting number and an ending number. But you have to remember that since Python increments with its first index equal to 0, we're never actually going to get to 6, as you can see here. We're only going to go up to 5. And this while loop code does the same exact thing. So I start by initializing this x to be 0, and while x is less than 6, I'm going to print what x is. And basically, I just need to make sure of this incrementation because it's really important. And if I don't do this, x will remain 0 forever, and this will never be false, and my while loop will go on indefinitely. So yeah, guys, incrementation is super important. So here we can see that at every iteration, x is increased, and 1 plus equals does that. And I will continue x, and it will continue this while x is less than 6, and I will end when x is equal to 5. That would be my last iteration, because at the next iteration, x will be equal to 6 and no longer less than. So does that make sense? All right, I'm going to assume you guys are understanding and following me. Okay, cool. So finally, we have some functions. So functions are blocks of code that can perform an action repeatedly. So super efficient if you're going to use the same method over and over again. So you have to start by defining your function, and that's what def is doing. You're going to give your function a name, and your function will take in things called arguments. So this function is going to take in one argument. Now, num doesn't really mean anything. It's sort of just a descriptive. It's just sort of like descriptive for you as someone who's reading the code that this will be a number, but we're going to use it as a placeholder for when we actually like use this function and input something. So if num modulo 2 is equal to 0, print even. And modulo is like division, except that it returns a remainder. So if the numbers divided by 2's remainder is 0, then this number is even. If not, it's odd. So this is a pretty simple function. Is even 4? It is even. So it's going to print even. Okay, so we're going to take what we've learned so far and apply it to a Jupyter notebook. So can you guys see the notebook? And let me know if I should zoom in. Or I'll just zoom in. Okay, cool. So first I'm gonna do some import statements here. So we'll import this NumPy package. And yep, so in order to run cells, I'm just doing Shift Enter, and it's a lot easier than like going up to cell here and clicking on like run cell every time. So yeah, Shift Enter. Okay, so first, I'm going to assign my first variable to this integer 789. And when I call this variable, it will print 789 in my notebook. Now, if I subtract 700 from the variable I just assigned, I'll get 89. So Python can also just be used like a calculator. So any arithmetic expression like this can be evaluated. Here, so I'll assign another variable which equals to a string. And if I call var1 again, I will see the string bits. Now strings, you can treat a lot like arrays or lists, which means that they're just indexable, right? Which is why, like I mentioned earlier, that technically a string is a data structure. Okay, so if I call the 0 indice, I will get the first element, which should be a lowercase b. And now, let's see, if I take the length here, I should get 4, which is the length of the string. All right, now what do you guys think var1.upper will do when I run the cell? Drop your answers in the chat. Yeah, you guys are so smart. So yeah, it will result in uppercase and assign everything in the string to uppercase. Awesome. All right, so now what do you think will happen in this dot replace statement? Drop your answers in the chat. Oh, I love this. You guys are so smart. Great, so yeah, if I replace T with D, you will see that this replacement didn't happen. I mean, it's not going to happen in uppercase because it's not mutable. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I can also concatenate strings. So I will see Rutgers space BITS here with the sum operation. Okay, cool. So now we're going to assign this variable a NumPy array. So when I run this cell, you will see NumPy array, the array. And now I'm going to mutate it. So I'm going to assign array1 index 2 equals 20. So what do you think will happen when I run this cell? Drop your answers in the chat. Awesome. Yeah, you guys are right. So it's going to reassign the third element 12 to 20 when I call this array. And it did. Great. Now my next variable is going to be assigned to index 2 in this previous array. So what do you think will be my output once I run the cell? Yep, good. So yeah, I see a 20 here. You guys are so smart. And finally, I have my list. So my list has values 11, 12, 13, and 14. And I'm basically doing the same thing. I'm going to reset the first here. So yeah, and now I'm going to reset the first indices to 0. So 11 is going to be replaced with 0. So I think you guys are getting the hang of this, which is really great. Now we have conditional statements. Okay, so if it has this hash mark here, it just means that it's commented out. So if I uncomment it, it's going to result in an error, as you can see here. So I'll just comment it again. Okay, so this first example is basically the same one as the slide. So I set this variable z equal to 8. If z is greater than 10, I'll print z is greater than 10. If it's not, I'll print z is less than or equal to 10. And I should get z is less than or equal to 10. Perfect. So now we're going to introduce elif. So first, I'm going to evaluate if z is still 8. If is not going to be true, but elif is going to be true. So I won't even get to this else statement. And we should get, oh, z, we small. All right, let's do some loop examples now. So for these loop examples, I'm going to iterate through a list. So for the first example, you will notice that each element in the list is the same as its indices. So 0 is in the 0 place, index-wise, 1 is in the 1 place, index-wise, and so on. So this is sort of a special case. So I'm using X in LST in sort of a special way because it is both the indice and the element. So if I wanted to raise each element in my list to the power of 2, you will see that when I run this cell, it's going to work. But if I try to do it just by doing list to the power of 2, I'll get an error because this is not something that lists are able to do. NumPy arrays can though. So yeah, this is my way of getting around it. But yeah, I had to like use this kind of a special case of the element being the same as the indice. All right, so now in order to get around that, I can also use range. So this is the same case, but I'm gonna go through the first 5 elements here. So I'm only gonna get up to 4. So this is basically the same code as above, and when you run it, you will see that 5, 6, and 7 don't change. And yeah, the other way to do it is, let's say I have 7 elements here. So now my elements and my indices don't match anymore, right? Because we have the 8 here, which breaks the chain. So we'll be able to print the same output, except this time we'll use, well, similar output, I should say. But this time we'll have to add array 2 in front of the x because x is no longer the element. And yeah, that's how we get around this problem. You could just use the range that's the same length as the list. All right, now let's say you don't know the length and you're given a long arbitrary list. So what can you do in this code to get the same output without counting the values in the list? And yeah, you guys can drop your answer in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself. Okay, so, okay, looks like one person got it, Mariam. Yeah, that's right. So we're going to change this 7. We're just going to replace it with len of array 2. And yeah, this should give us the same end bound. So it gives us the same answer. All right, so next we have some if statements embedded in our for loop. So for x in range 0 through 10, if x mod 2 equals 0, print x is even, else print x is odd. So this is like a combination of multiple concepts. And yeah, this is going to assign even or odd to like the values in the range. All right, so this while loop example is basically the same as the example on the slides. But yeah, I can run it and you can see it's very similar, so I won't go over it. All right, so now we have a character list. So we're going to iterate through this character. So if I have this character list, I can initialize the fruit to be an empty string. For every element in this character list, I'm going to add it to this empty string. And then at the very end, after I've added all the characters in the string to the fruit, I'm going to print the fruit. So what do you think will be my output when I run this cell? Yep, you guys got it. It's going to print fruit, cherry. Awesome. So yeah, that's a little fun concatenation of a list of characters into one word. All right, so now, yeah, so a little note about break and continue. So we'll do an example for both cases. Okay, so if some condition is met and I want to exit early, I use break. So let's say I want to stop iterating if I hit Skittles. So that's basically what this is saying. So for every element in candies, if the element is Skittles, stop now, do not continue because I never want to see this list again and I don't like Skittles. So that's what this code is doing. So what do you think will be my output when I run this cell? Drop your answers in the chat. Nice. So yeah, I only get Kit Kat and Twix, and it stops at Skittles. All right, so now let's say I didn't want to discard the list entirely and maybe just skip over the Skittles. So that's what continue does. So if some iteration of this for loop makes the statement true, I will skip over it. So after running this cell, you should see Kit Kat, Twix, Starburst, and Crunch. And you do because I skipped over Skittles. Okay, so finally we have functions. So this is exactly the same example in the slide, except I changed the output a little bit. So when I run this cell, it should say the number is odd. And let's say I change this argument. So now it should say even. Awesome. And yeah, this final function is an absolute value function. So the absolute value of -3 is 3. There we go. And I can change it to whatever I want. I can make it like -345. All right, so now abs is a built-in expression here, and we got that from importing math in the beginning. So yeah, that's all for the demo, and now we're going to do a quick quiz to see if you guys are paying attention. And this is how we're going to do check-ins today. All right, back to this. Okay, so yeah, this is how we're going to do check-ins today through the quiz. So please make sure you put in your name. Okay, does anyone need a few more seconds to join? Okay, we'll wait for like a minute. Okay, so there's 64 of you here, and we only have 50 people, 51 so far. Okay, so I guess I'll start now. Okay, cool. So your question is, transform this sentence, I don't know Python, into I know Python. And you have like 1 minute to answer. And yeah, these are your, so this is the statement, workshop equals I don't know Python, and these are your options. Anyone need more time? Okay, so let's see. Awesome. So it looks like most of you guys got it. So this is awesome. You guys are Python experts now. I love it. All right. So yeah, the correct answer was D. Okay, so here are our 2 upcoming events. So we have a speaker series in collab with Women in Business tomorrow at 8 p.m. We're going to have a speaker from Monday.com. And if you haven't heard of Monday.com, it's a project management tool that companies like Uber and Adidas use to manage their tasks, projects, and teamwork. It's a super cool platform. You guys can also use it to like plan your like work, personal schedule, and everything. And yeah, for the Data Analytics Accelerator, next week we have an Intro to SQL workshop where you'll learn the basic concepts of SQL, how to write queries, and get started with manipulating data. All right, so yeah, this brings us to the end of our workshop. I hope this was super helpful and I hope you enjoyed our first workshop. And I'll stop recording now.